Good evening to everybody. Shalom Aleichem. We're back in the, it's not quarantine, but we're doing what we did during quarantine, which is teach online. If you accused me of being a obsessive-compulsive teacher of Chassidus, I would consider it one of the greatest compliments you could possibly give me, and I think on some level I'm guilty as charged. I'm having a Sukkot break. Now, normally I would be teaching in Beis Medrash, the Nashma Bonus 770. But because Beis Medrash, the Nashma Bonus 770 is zoomed, I can do it more, right? I can do one class, I can do two. One in the morning and one at night. I hope you'll join. And if you don't join, sooner or later, somebody in Mitzvah Hashem is going to find these classes and learn them, which is the vision that we have. We're going to give shiurim on the Mamorim of the Rebbe and many other things, and they'll be there for Now, this is a short maimer. It's only 6 amudim, and I made it into 2. The next maimer is 14 amudim, and I only have 3 designated classes for it. I don't know how that's going to happen, but bigger miracles have occurred. Why did I divide this into 2? Because I feel like there's a lot of... The maimer is short but concentrated. In other words, there's a lot of things in it. And the length of a maimer is not determined necessarily by the number of words, but by how much is in those words. This is a maimer that uses the mashal for an eagle, for Hashem. The mashal for Hashem is an eagle. Why an eagle? Because an eagle is a Rachman, the Eibush is a Rachman. And the Rebbe said that there's the physical eagle, there's the eagle, the Merkava, there's the eagle, the Merkava Hal Yoina, and then there's the Kanesha Kine. The idea that when Hashem is compared to an eagle, he's only compared to an eagle. He's not called an eagle. Meaning to say, he's like an eagle, but he's more than an eagle. And since the highest Merkava, the highest place where you could speak about Kavin, or the form of an eagle, is in Ein Sof, is in Atzilus. Therefore, if Kanesha Yar Kine means that the Eibush Tekiah is like an eagle, but higher than an eagle, that means that the Eibush is Midas HaRachmim is even higher than Atzilus. And of course, the Rebbe said, Midas HaRachmim has one rule. You can't have Rachmanis on yourself, you can't have Rachmanis on something higher than yourself, you have to have Rachmanis on something less than yourself. So it turns out that even someone who's the Madrega of Atzilus, the Kanesha Yar Kine, the Rachamim Shalamayla, may say the Ishtalshlos, whether the Rachamim Mitzad Reimamus or Rachamim Mitzad Pshutim, it has Rachmanis. Why? Because the Eibush declared the world for Yirid Tzerech Aliyah. The Neshama starts off in Atzilus. And not only is it a Rachmanis on the Neshama when the Neshama is in Asiyah, but even when the Neshama returns to Atzilus, Kol Zaman, the Neshama does not have its Aliyah to higher than Atzilus, it's in Rachmanis. And of course, the Rebbe connected it to the same Lukat Tekiah, which was the basis of the Maimeh Shuva Yisrael, about the Rachamecha Harab Merachem Aleinu. Kvayachal, a person cannot have Rachmanis on himself, so we Kvayachal ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu that he should have Rachmanis on us. Because when a person's on a high level, or a very high level, Narvajadeni could be on a higher level still, he may not appreciate, quote, how big a Rachmanis it is on him until the Eibush has made it a Rachman. This is what we learned. What are we doing today? Tonight, the second half of the Maimer, which is Sachakol. It's 2 pages and a few lines here and a few lines there. We're going to actually read the beginning of the Maimer, and then we're going to go to the very bottom of page Chav Zayin. And the way it's going to play out is the Rebbe is going to call it 3 things. It's actually not going to be 3 things, it's going to be 4. But the Rebbe is going to call it 3. The cheshbon of 3 is because the Rebbe is going to bring that according to the Rambam, there's 3 concepts of tshuva. Number 1, tshuva all the time. Number 2, tshuva during Aseres Yemei Tshuva. And number 3, tshuva during Yom Kippur. And he's going to connect it to Kanesha Yar Kine, Al Gezol of Yerachev, and Yifres Knaf of Yikachei Yusay Alav Rasi. And the 4th Madrega, which is even higher than those 3, is that Hashem Bada Adyan Chena Veinim Yel Necher. So let's do it. Okay, beginning of the Maimer, page Chav Zayin, Chav Dal, pardon me. And if you have access to Facebook, the Maimer is up there. You can just open it up and listen and follow. And by the way, I put up this morning's class on my website, instantchassidus.org, in the Maimorim page. That was Maimorim Tavshin Lamed Ches, and also in Maimorim of Hazinu, and the PDF is there. You can download it from there as well. The pasuk begins, Kenesha Yorkina, that Hashem's gentleness in his relationship with the Jewish people, like an eagle wakes up its nest. That Al Gezol of Yerachev Gamid, it only hovers above its gazeless. Gazeless means unfledged birds, chicks that cannot fly. And then it says Yisrael, he carries it on his avid, which means on his wing or on his organs, his limbs. And the sequence of psukim, it's 2 psukim in a row, finishes at the Shem Badad Yanchenu. The Eibishter leads us in solitude, by ourselves. Ve'ein imei kel nechad. There is no other God, there's no other nation, it's just Hashem and the Jewish people. Says the Rebbe, the Yeduim Duke Rabbi Seinu Bazeh. We all know the kashas. Now, in the last shir, which I gave this morning, we spoke about the kasha of Nesher, of the Kin Nesher. And now we're going to read the kashas on the basic question, why there are 4 points here. What is the concept of these ideas in particular? Their sequence is from a lower level to a higher level. From one level to a level higher. The first level is the lowest level is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's rachamim is like an eagle who wakes up its nest. Says the Rebbe, he's waking up his young. Rashi says, Yoed Bonov, and the connotation is that he's barely touching them. And then it says, Al Gezov Yerachev, it hovers above the chicks, above the unfledged birds. This is more than simply waking them up. He hovers above them, he touches them and is not touching them at all. And later on, the Rebbe is going to call this being makif, totally enveloping them, totally surrounding them. Then it says, so there's a third idea of Yisa'eh, he carries them on his limb, on his wing. He doesn't only hover or touch them indirectly, as Shanei says, but in many places, his children, and raise them above himself, above his body. I remember being a child and learning this parsha. I remember who the Malamed was. I don't think he taught us Hazinu inside, but he was a good Malamed and he taught us parsha. So we spoke about the idea in Pashas Yisrei. For Eschem al-Kanfi Nisharim, so he brought the idea over there that the Eibishter carries us on his wings. Like the eagle who carries its nest, its young on the wing, as opposed to all of the birds that carry them in their talons, in their hands, as it were. And again, I mentioned in the previous class that I don't know of a single living species of bird that actually does this. So either it's an inyan ruchni lagamre, or there once was such a bird, or such birds. Be that as it may, I remember asking my teacher, the whole point of carrying the birds, the young on its back, rather than holding him in the talons, is that if you shoot an arrow, it's not going to hit the young, it's going to hit the mother. So I said to my Malamed, if the mother gets hit, the mother is killed. No, so what's going to happen to the bird? My Malamed was very irritated by the question, I remember very distinctly. And he said to me, so the bird will fall. It'll fly, but lower. In other words, the teacher's answer was that the bird can already fly. Now, but then it can't fly as high as the mother. And the mother will give away her life that the child will get a chance to grow, even if it's going to be flying initially at a lower level. This is what my Malamed told me 45 years ago, more than 45 years ago. Now, I don't know if it's true or not, but this is just a true mamish, a real example of Girsa de Yankase. And of course, the nimshal is that Kavayachal Hashem carries us above himself. And of course, above himself in Kabbalah means above Atzilus, as we'll see momentarily. The highest madrega, the fourth madrega is Adeshem Badad Yanchen, our relationship with the Eibishter is Badad, alone, in solitude. So the question is, what are these details? So now we're going to all turn to the end of page Chav Zayin, and we're going to continue the second part of the Maimer. We know that the Inav and Neshed is Rachmanis, and we know that when we call our Kadosh Baruch Hu Kin Neshed, we're actually arguing that his Rachamim is higher than the Rachamim of the highest Madrega of Neshed. Now the highest Madrega of Neshed is Atzilus. So the Eibish's Rachamim is only compared to a Neshed, but it's even more, which is even higher than Atzilus. But the particular steps in the Rachmim of a Neshed, in every level, the physical Neshed, the Neshed, the lower Merkava, the Neshed, the higher Merkava, the Neshed, which is higher than the highest Merkava, has 4 steps. And the Rebbe wants to analyze what these 4 steps are. So the Rebbe says on the bottom of page Chav Zayin with the 8 is, number 8, the order is, the initial step is he wakes up his young. She'ene ela sheme'ere, but simply arouses them in kivin shazua yam shacham b'chinas kenesha. Shalamai the midiyad agbala, since the eagle's level, in its source, is including the rachamim higher than say the ishtalshalos, so he is able to arouse them without even touching them. That's the first step. The second step is he encompasses him and he clothes him from all sides. And the third level, you say, the pirish avras, the meaning of avras from the word eva, which means limb. Obviously, physically means the wing. But spiritual is meloshen aver, a limb. One of the Rabbi Chavidim. You say, well, avras hainu shayadei tshuva through tshuva misala l'maylam b'chinas evar the malka. A person is raised above the idea of the limbs of the king. In other words, higher than atzilos, because of aver and the malka shema mitzvahs of the mitzvahs. And al-avras is higher than mitzvahs, which is connected to tshuva. Shalachein b'ke'echat tshuva, which is why the power of tshuva is such that it is l'malei l'saken achasaron, to complete and to correct any diminutions b'namach mitzvah, say in the 248 mitzvahs through bittul mitzvahs, I say. So al-avras means higher than the ramach evidim, higher than the mitzvahs. Now I'm going to say something that I probably shouldn't say. He said, bepashas ever means that knafayim, wings, but the kabbalah birds in the madrega v'yitzire. So, or bria at the most. So he says, even though the poshet attaches that it's knafayim, it also means the evidim, and the evidim means the kelim of atzilus. And then he concludes, which is Yisrael, the Yidden and HaKadosh Baruch Hu are one, which is not only in the highest world, it's higher than the highest world, it's higher than the highest world. Moreover, it's drawn and revealed down here, dafke in the home, which is in the world, which happens in this world, the Pashtas. So you have these 4 steps, and the Rebbe wants to analyze what they are. And he's going to do it in 3 different ways. If you're looking at your sheet, it's numbers 9 and 10 and 11. Number 9 is going to explain how it is in the Yomim Neroyim. Number 10 is going to explain very basic how it is every day. And number 12 is going to explain even more indirectly, as it's connected to the Maimorim of before Rosh Hashanah of Lamed Zayin. Zayim Tchilas Masecha. And at the Nitzavim, we spoke about the 3 translations of Hemarta and Hemircha, which we learned about and we're going to get to soon. V'hinei. We have 4 things. Kenesha Yarkine, Al Gezel of Yerachiv, Yisrael of Rase, and Hashem Badad Yanchenu. So first of all, we have Kivishheim Bezmani Hashan, in the year. If you want to talk about a year, as a unit, Heim Betchilas Hashanah, they're in the beginning of the year. The Kshem Shepashas Nitzavim Kelim Le'elim Lefnei Rosh Hashanah. Nitzavim is always before Rosh Hashanah. Mekein Pashas Hazinu Kedim Le'elim Achar Rosh Hashanah. Hazinu is always after Rosh Hashanah. Vayelech, the Rebbe says in the bracket, is like Batat. He shuttles back and forth, sometimes in the old year, sometimes in the new year. This year, Vayelech was before Rosh Hashanah, because Rosh Hashanah is Shabbos. And when either Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur is Shabbos, so then Vayelech is with Nitzavim. If neither Rosh Hashanah nor Yom Kippur are Shabbos, so then Vayelech is Pashas, is Shabbos Shuvah, and Azinu is between Rosh Hashanah, between Yom Kippur and Sukkot. Says the Rebbe, and he goes through each one. Number 1, Kanesha Yoir Kine, as the eagle wakes up its nest without even touching the bird, simply coming at the neighbor and making a little noise. And the Rebbe said before that since we're talking about a Nesher, even a Nesher, who's higher than say his touch reaches us without him touching us, just by being in our neighborhood. Says the Rebbe, this is Elo, and the 13 attributes of mercy which are revealed. Then, and the Rebbe says, and of course we know this is called Malach Basada. What do we know about Malach Basada? We know about Malach Basada that this is the king in the field on the field level. And the king in the field on the field level means that if we choose to ignore him, it's as if he's not there. But if we choose to approach him, we see how helpful he is, because it's a subliminal support. The king doesn't come into the field with a tumult, with a shturim like a melech. He comes to the king very quietly, very passively. And you have to choose to approach. And this is Kenesha Yarkine. The Eibishter doesn't touch us. He simply comes to our proximity. And he makes enough noise that if we wanted, it would wake us up, like the Inyan Avel. And he adds, we have to look for him. Now, Bakshu Fonai means the Pneumius, that means Yechida. But L'cheira, in this particular case, the diak is on the word Bakshu. Hashem is available for us if we want to search for Him. If we chas v'shalom neglect to do the Bakshu, then the Kinesha Yarkine doesn't wake us up. That's Elo. And he continues. Then it says, Al Geiz Olav Yirachei with Rosh Hashanah. What happens at Rosh Hashanah? Rosh Hashanah, of course, we have something called Durmita in Kabbalah. There's a sleep, there's an interruption of the Eibush as being a Melech Al Kol Ha'olam, the king over the world. And we make him a king again by blowing shofar. And the blowing of the shofar is a cry from the deepest levels of the neshama. We cry out to Atmas and Hussein Sav Baruch Hu that Hashem's relationship with us and with His world should be one of ratzon, not one of hechrech, one of desire, from our part and from His part. His involvement in the world should be beratzon, which is the inyan of a melech. But the relationship between a melech and an am is makif. The pnimius of the relationship between a melech and an am is the instructions. You understand? But the actual coronation, the event of crowning a king in and of itself, is not a pnimius dika thing. It remains a makif thing, and that's the taich al gezel of Yirach. Let's read it tonight. Hu b'reish Hashanah. Sha'oz ha'avoydi tamluchin alech. We make him a king. And how do we make him a king? Ayedei Kabbalah Seil Malchus Shmaim Dereish Hashanah. Hashanah is a special kind of Kabbalah Seil, which is called Kabbalah Seil Kloli, as opposed to the Kabbalah Seil of a whole year. The Kabbalah Seil of Rosh Hashanah is a submission not to his mitzvahs but to him, and the submission is total. We prostrate ourselves, we throw ourselves before him, we fling ourselves to the ground, and so to speak, dispose ourselves to him with total hisbatlus, like a shatiach, like a hishtatchus, like laying flat on the ground. This kind of bittul arouses in the king a feeling of reimamus, of being above the subjects, and he accepts to be their patron. He accepts to be responsible for them with his own will, as opposed to him imposing himself on us, which would make it behechrech. It's compelled, forced, it's beratz. So the avoida is the bittul and the Kabbalah Seil, which is bizgal's atmas and nefesh, reveal the highest levels of the neshama. And as a consequence of that, he becomes a king. But even that is only a makif. Azai then al geiz alav Yirach, if he hovers above his chicks, above his unfledged birds. The highest makif, atmas and hus. The Eibush is saying, I will be our melech, embraces us. But that's all it is. It's only an embrace. Via days and through this embrace. During the subsequent days of tshuva you have, first of all, since on Rosh Hashanah we crowned him as a king, and we revealed his malchus, so the source with a capital S has come closer to the spark. Now there brings a second expression, which is called his galas hamoiralitis, the revealing of the source to the spark. And the Rebbe says in parenthesis, B'lashon hayadua, the famous expression. And of course I wrote on my margin, any time it says in Chassidus, B'lashon hayadua, no one's ever heard of it. And there's only one mocker, the Maimer King Yenachayim from the Friedrich Rebbe from Tafresh Peiches. My point is, the classic Loshen is Kiruv Amoiralitis. This expression is Galas Amoiralitis is a Chiddush, and there's no doubt in my mind that there's a place in the Rebbe Sichas Maimorim where the Rebbe took this Kinyan Achayim and tore it open and made from an Aganza Binyan. What's the difference between Kiruv Amoiralitis and his Galas Amoiralitis? But here he doesn't explain it. He simply says that after Rosh Hashanah there is his Kiruv Amoiralitis, his Galas Amoiralitis, which is never said is Yemei Tshuva. And the Rebbe said, Sha'oz he avedas tshuva be'efen aliyes, which is a higher level of tshuva. And he brings that Rambam. Now I want to make it clear. Even though he's separating Rosh Hashanah from Seder Yemei Tshuva, in as much as Al Gezelav Yirachev is concerned, they're a package. The three things are Elul, a Seder Yemei Tshuva, including Rosh Hashanah, and Yom Kippur. Why? Rambam writes that tshuva is all the time. Nevertheless, Oza tshuva yafa b'yeser umiskabeles b'yeser. It's a prettier tshuva. The word yafa is interesting. It's a prettier tshuva and it's more received. Hainu be'ever that mehedi yodas devari. It's not that Hashem doesn't receive a tshuva all year long, but it happens more quickly. Lefi sham shachi madrege nailes b'yeser she'ei ma'akav l'gabah, because it's brought from an even higher level, and higher levels have less obstruction, less interference. So Shoshana Seres Yemei Tshuva is the madrega of Al Gezelav Yirachev. Hashem surrounds us completely with his Ein Seif, with Atzmos. Because we crown him as a king, and once we crown him as a king, our capacity for tshuva is from a higher level, right? All year, the Gemara says, "Kam b'yachad, kam b'tzibur." All year long, if you want your tefillah to be answered, you need 10 to guarantee the answer of the prayer. And the Aseret Yemei Tshuva, one is like 10, because there's a Gila v'Gimel Midas HaRachman, which is higher than Seder Ishtalshalos. So it begins with making Hashem a melech, and it continues in the Aseret Yemei Tshuva. But this is called, he's hovering around, he's embracing us. And I interpreted it before, and I'm going to repeat it again, because during the Yomim Ne'eraim, the focus is on Melucha and on Tshuva. And the Pnimi is the connection between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mitzvahs ma'asiyos, is a ritual, our life as Jews, which really begins on Sukkot. And if you learn the Vakocha, it's implicit that even after Simchas Torah, certainly you have to wait for the mitzvahs of Sukkot. But Rosh Hashanah and the Aseret Yemei Tshuva, which is the time of Tshuva, even though it's a Gili of Atzmos, in the Eibishter's desire to be a Melech, it's considered a Makif. And he concludes, the third step is the wholeness of Tshuva, which is Yom Kippurim. Parenthesis, can move on Medivrei Rambam, as the Rambam says, there's three concepts of Tshuva. Number one, Tshuva the Kol Hashanah, which in this Maimer would be Elo. Kinesh Yor Kinei. Number two, Aseret Yemei Tshuva, the 10 days of Tshuva, the Aseret, which are including Rosh Hashanah, which would be Al Geiz Elav Yirachev, and then the Tshuva of Yom Kippurim, which is Yisrael Alav Raseh. The Tshuva of Yom Kippur, it says Yisrael Alav Raseh, Hashem carries us above His Eivid, in other words, above the Esesfiras of Atzilus. Han Lebechinas Shalom Ma'ila Benamach Eivid the Malka, above the limbs of Atzilus, which is where the mitzvahs are. Canals, the Rebbe said in the previous page, the Tshuva is higher than Teinu mitzvahs, that's why he's able to correct it. So the Vart is that in Kabbalah you have the expression L'shtaba b'guf of the Malka, to become one with the guf of HaKadosh Baruch. And L'shtaba b'guf of the Malka means to be yachad gamay with chayed, that the kelim become one with the oir. And in the case of a person, that a person becomes in a state of dveikus with Elokus. Mitzvahs are in Atzilus. Every mitzvah is a different avid, a different part of Atzilus. And when a Yid does a mitzvah, he strengthens that avid, he's connected to that avid, he brings down the Eir Elokui from that avid onto himself, and so forth. Yisa'eu alav rasei means we're going higher than Teira in mitzvahs, which allows for the tshuva to be complete. So Yom Kippur is much higher. That not only do we have a relationship with the Eibishter, but that the relationship raises us above Atzilus in terms of correcting our deficiencies in mitzvahs. Okay? And then he finishes with the fourth idea, which I don't understand. The idea is in Nas Ahkacha in the Hashem Bodad Yanchenu, which is Betach Bodad Ein Yankiv, which is Ali B'Bchinas Atzma, which is even higher than the three in Yanam. He doesn't explain it. And I wrote on the margin that maybe this means mitzvahs ma'asiyos, Sukkos and after Sukkos. But the three steps are Elo, when our relationship with Hashem is He doesn't touch us. Rosh Hashanah Yom Ne'eraim, where He totally envelops us, but it's only a makiv. And Yom Kippur, where He raises us higher than Atzilus. But I'm going to argue that even Yom Kippur, even if He's raising us higher than Atzilus, is still not Atzmus, because it's not connected to mitzvahs. I want you to know that in the next Maimer, the Rebbe is going to bring, the Maimer of Ulekachta Mechem by Yom Rishon, the Maimer of Yud Gimel Tishrei Tafshin Lamed Ches, which is from 43 years ago, this Tishrei, which we're going to be learning Mitzvah Hashem beginning tomorrow evening, by Ezer Hashem Yisbarach V'Yasala. He's going to speak about how Yom Kippur is the Pnimius of Rosh Hashanah, and then he's going to say, even though it's the Pnimius of Rosh Hashanah, it's still a Makif. Because even the Schach of Sukkah is Makif till you have the Lulav. The reason it's Makif because it's not connected to action, it's just connected to a spiritual experience, but it's a higher, it's a deeper spiritual experience. So whatever you understand as the difference between Al Geiz Elav Yirachev and Yisrael Alav Rasei, there's three steps. There's Elul, there's Rosh Hashanah, Aseret Yemei Tshuva, and then there's Yom Kippur. And the Rebbe continues, the bottom of page Chof Ches, Ubiyah Prates Yesin, Hanal, Kfi Shem B'Chaz Hashanah, Yeshna Gam B'Vet Kulach B'Yisrael B'Chol Yem. Every single day you have these three steps, or four steps. First you have Kenesha Yored Kinei, that Hashem touches us, wakes us, not touching us B'Chlal. Maybe that's Meidani, huh? Al Gezol of Yirachavit, He totally surrounds us with a very high oyer. I don't know what that would be. And then Yisrael Alav Rosei, even higher than Teir in mitzvahs. And Avaya Bodad Yanchenu. He doesn't explain which parts of the day represent which. I'm just going to read on. And in what's going to follow, he's also not going to explain. He's simply going to give us a philosophical framework for it. And he's going to leave it for us to figure out what is the daily Kinesha Yor Kinei, what is the daily Al Gezel of Yirachev, and what is the daily Alev Rasei, and what is the daily Adeshem Badad Yanchenu. Says the Rebbe, without going into specifics. In general, the idea is that it says in Chazal, during Moshe's times, the relationship between Hashem and Yidden was directly from the Eibush. There was no Malach. Moshe didn't want a Malach. It says in the Pasuk, and of course, there's a lot of discussion in the Rishonim about what it says, Malach. What that means is different Pirushim. But of course, the classic one is that this means B'yimei Yeshua. Kum Tochaisit. If in the times of Moshe Rabbeinu there was no intermediacy, there's no support from Malachim, which are called Kinesha Yorikin Al Gezel of Yirachiv. Kum Tochaisit. That Gam B'chinas Aveda Lo Yisichem L'Kabel Ava V'yira Di Malach. The generation of Moshe Rabbeinu, they didn't need Malach. They didn't need what Malachim give, right? Simply saying we had Ava V'yira without Malachim, but you could also say you didn't need Ava V'yira. And it seems, if you take it literally, you didn't even need Evrasi. You didn't even need Atzilus. The relationship between Yid and the Eibishter was even higher than all of those things. Avo. However, so there was no need for the Kenesha Yorikini Al Gezel Al Virachi, they were all not Madrega. Afterwards, that once Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, we do need to have a connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu through the intermediacy of the Malach. And of course, we don't have to even bavor that Chas v'Shalom to think of Mamutza Mafsek. This is a Mamutza Mechaber. Even in Yeshua's time, this is Atabas, so even in the times of Yeshua, our relationship to HaKadosh Baruch Hu needs to have a Malach, which means the Midas HaRachamim of the Nesher and so on. Kum Tochaisit. Al Ken Gam Ba'avodah, from the time of Yeshua ben Nun, Hine, K'nei Lova L'Bechinas Echad V'Yahavta. B'Kriyas Shema, if a person wants to have the infant Echad V'Yahavta in Kishma, it's like the Shtayim L'Faneh, we talk about the Malach, that they're standing in a Yid of a Chul. In other words, during Moshe Rabbeinu's lifetime, all Yidden were in such a high madrega, they didn't need a malach. They didn't need rachamim, not rachamim of a kevet hator, not rachamim of a kaveh law. And if you take this by literally, not even rachamim, so maybe not even rachamim pshutim, because the Yidden were in the highest madregas of connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, shalei yadei memutz. But once Moshe passes away, now Yidden have experienced the Yeridah, and they ascend step by step from lowest to highest. And the first step is Kenesha Yoir Kine. Hashem wakes us up without touching us. Then you have Al Gezer Lav Yirache, where he touches and doesn't touch, which is the Madrega where he totally surrounds us. And then you have Yisrael Avras, even higher in Teireh Mitzvahs. Now, if I was a gambling man, I would say that Kenesha Yoir Kine is Meidani. Al Gezer Lav Yirache is Teireh and Tefillah, davening and learning. When a Yid goes out into the world, Adam Chedesh, Adam Zeireya, so he's reaching higher than Atzilus. And Hashem Badar Mechani, make whatever you want. You can make it even feel inside Mincha if it makes you happy. But the Rebbe does not tell us how in every day you have these 3 or 4 steps of Kenesha Yorikini, Al Gezol of Yirachiv, and then Yis'eo of Rasi. But the Yom Neroim he does, again, he's linking it, he's anchoring it, and the 3 in Yom of Tshuva in the Rambam. Otherwise, the Rebbe leaves it very open-ended. Aval Tachlas, the end is going to be, you should come to Bechinas Ponim, which is that even Yidden, not in the gender of Moshe Rabbeinu, are going to reach the Madrega of Ponim. And as we had in the previous Maim Yeshuva Yisrael, the second Shir, the Alter Rebbe says, and the Rebbe explains it, that even though Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, that's only B'derech Hamshacha, B'derech Allah, every Yid can have Ponim. In short, I'm talking a lot, right? And I'm saying nothing. In short, just like we explained, the 3 or 4 steps in conjunction with the year, Kenesh Yarkini being Elul, Al Gezel Av Yiracha being Shoshana Aseres Yimei Tshuva, Yis'eo Av Rasi being Yimei Kippurim, it's true every day. And then the Rebbe says in Tekiah, now we can further attach these 3 ideas. And again, we're missing the 4th idea of Adasham Badajan Chenu. With the 3 interpretations of the Pasuk of the Shem Amarta, Shem Amircha, Shenes Bayalil, Midrusha, Tzemach Tzedek, which we discussed in the Maimer of Zayim Tchos Masachat Av Shalom Zayim, which we learned before Rosh Hashanah, which is based on the Maimer from Tzemach Tzedek. And again, the Rebbe, the footnote 59, he mentioned that it's also in the Atam Nitzavim. And I took a look inside and I kicked myself. I said, so next year we have to learn 2 Maimarim before Rosh Hashanah, because already Rosh Hashanah begins that early. We'll see on my mood if I'll remember Baklal. But what did the Rebbe say? The Rebbe said that Hamarta has 3 translations: praise, clothing, and words. And the Rebbe said, Al Pisechel Esfara, the lowest level is a word, the second level is clothing, and the higher level is praise. So why do we first say praise, and then clothing, and then words? So the Rebbe said, because we're talking about Zayim Tilas Masecha, which is higher than the Kanal Yemrishon. And when you're talking about Zayim Tilas Masecha and the Maimed of Nasa Adam, the lowest level is Shevach. The lowest level is the Gili of Alakus, which is so extraordinary, so unusual. Nus of the lowest level is Shevach. What's after that? After that is mitzvahs, clothing, and the highest level is Teira, words. In other words, all 3 translations of He'emarta and He'emircha, Lashon Shevach, Lashon Malbush, and Lashon Amira are above the Madreg of Shevach. They're extraordinary, special. So the Rebbe says the first translation, Lashon Shevach, is like Elul, is Kinesha Yar Kines, like Medani. It's an incredibly high idea simply because Hashem is sufficiently close to us that we should feel Him without Him even touching us. Then you have the Makif, which is the yin of mitzvahs, which is like the Makif of Rosh Hashanah that he explained. Hashem becomes our king. And you have to say Pshat that the mitzvahs over here means Beruchnius, because L'cheira doing mitzvahs Begashmius is already a much later step. And then you have the idea of understanding Teira. This is Yisrael of Rasa. Let's read it inside. It says the Rebbe Chaim, Gam B'Dushmat B'Marash. Should be said in the previous Maimer. There's 3 translations to the words. Number 1, Shevach, praise. Number 2, Levush, garment. Number 3, Amida, words. And that said, is a dibit which come down later to Saram Amares. So the lowest one is Lashon Shevach, which is connected to Kinesha Yair Kine, a Gili high and say Derish Talshus, which is so high that without touching us it arouses us. The second level is Lashon Malbush, which in that Maimed, the Maimed of Zehayim goes on mitzvahs, and in this Maimed it's the Makif of Mekei Devish and Melech. And the third one is Teira. This is connected to the yin of Yom Kippurim, which is the highest Madrega, the highest possibility for tshuva, which is even higher than Evrasi, higher than the mitzvahs, which is the Atzilas. And of course, none of these 3 things take into account the Shem Bada Yanchenu, which is the 4th level. So we have so many ideas that we opened and didn't close. Number 1, the big idea is what's Hashem Bada Yanchenu? Higher than the 3 levels, you become Omer HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this means living in the physical world, in the day-to-day life, and learning to and doing mitzvahs in special times, not in extraordinary times. Number 2, we have 3 models for the 3 first things. Elul, Rosh Hashanah says Mitzvah, Yom Kippur. Every day, without specifying what they are. The 3 translations of He'emarta and He'emircha. And in all 3 of these cases, higher than all 3 is the Adeshem Bada Yanchenu Ve'ini Mekel Nech. And he finishes V'chein Tialon. All this should happen to us from Aseres. Adibis Kishem Beluchishni as Aseres, Adibis which were given second Luchas, which are connected to Tshuva and Yom Kippur and Giflayim Utushia Yom Shach Be'elam Mitzvah coming to the world Bereshis Baralikim. And not just renewal of the old world, but Be'efish Nasim Shmaim Chadash Me'el Chadash, which is when Mashiach comes. And of course, then the pasuk adds, "Ken Yamet Erachem V'Shimchem V'Gula Mitzvah Vashem Mashiach Tzedkenu take off Meyad Mamish." So the pasuk says, "Ki kasher Hashamayim Achadoshim Ha'aretz Hachadosh Hashani Oisho." When Mashiach comes, there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth. And then it says, "Ken Yamet Erachem V'Shimchem." Not that there's going to be new Zara, not new shame. Yid not going to be the same. There'll be a new world and the same Yid. So again, I taught the Maimer, I explained the Maimer, and I pointed out all of the things in the Maimer that remained unexplained. And I hope that by pointing out what's not sufficiently explained, I didn't take away the Geshmak from the Maimer that you're able to understand. And B'li Neder, so tomorrow morning I'm going to have a shofar class, then I'm going to do my Machachana classes, and in the evening we're going to start with Hashem's help. We'll Tov